Robert Fair's The Diary, written by Mark Quinn.
This episode of The Diary is called Breaking Point. That's better. Grandma's curry goes right through me and Grandpa. Last time we had it, Grandpa shit his pants in Sainsbury's. Grandma had to say it's because of his age. But Muggins here had to clean the front seat of the car when they got home and was heaving with every wipe. Grandpa has always suffered with his tummy, and it's because of this why I'm adding it into my diary under the title, I'll write this down in brown marker pen, Breaking Point. Well, it all started earlier in school this week when we had drama class with, I must say, a rather stylish and sensible woman for her age. She's about 20, way too old for me, but then again, 9-year-olds can be very childish and crybabies. Just look at Katie Singleworth last week, crying like a how do you spell it? Never mind, sulky turd, because Fatty Jones rubbed rabbit droppings into her hair. I'll draw a little heart in red ink near her name. Miss Chatburn, our drama teacher. But she never turned up. Got the shits, one thinks. Maybe she had Grandma's curry. The dreaded stand-in teacher. I'll write next to her name, Nutjob, the old crow herself, Mrs. Cuthbert. She's ancient, must be in her 40s. Blinking dinosaurs never lived over 40, I'm sure. Anyway, she was the replacement teacher. Music is her thing. But in her class, it's like a load of monkeys with pots and pans. Total carnage. Well, she wanted us to reenact what we did over our summer holidays. Pardon me, blinking Vimto. Well, I was with Fatty Jones, well known for his acting. I'll write this in blue ink and capitals. I think not. We did a reenactment of something that happened in my holiday to the Cluster Blinking Awful in Spain. I went with Grandma and Grandpa and some other old-aged fossils. Anyhow, on this particular event, Grandpa, with his dicky tummy, was having problems, and one of the old-aged fossils who looked like a sultana, after catching the sun, said to him to try a drink called port and brandy. Less gassy than Vimto, with a bit of luck. Well, I stayed with Grandpa, and the others went to get changed into their evening wear. Well, I say he was intoxicated. How do you spell it? Never mind. Pissed. I want to make sure I write this down. It was his idea to go to standing bingo. It was where the adults had to stand up. And when the bingo caller called out a number, you had to sit down. If you had it meaning you were out. Grandpa was doing well. He was up right till the end with about another 3 coffin dodgers. Then the bingo caller, I called him Ringo Gringo, told them all to come and grab a prize. I wanted a big fluffy gorilla, and Grandpa stumbled up toward the prizes. He grabbed the ape by the arms, and Ringo Gringo grabbed it by the legs, telling Grandpa that this prize was not on offer because it was a star prize. Grandpa was having none of it and continued to have a tug of war. Then all the other corpses started getting up and moving in to grab the other prizes. You would have thought somebody shouted out, "Free embalming fluid!" because they got up quicker than Usain Bolt. Ringo Gringo was screaming at the top of his voice, but nobody took any notice. I think they turned down their hearing aids. So, back to our drama class. I tell Fatty Jones that he will be Ringo Gringo and I will be Grandpa. And I told him the story. Then in front of the class I had to tell the story again and stop before the end and act out the rest. Well, I mentioned the word gorilla, and out of nowhere, bloody Mrs. Cuthbert said she'd be it. Well, I did try to tell her, but the old silly cow didn't want to listen. I was doing a great acting job as well. I was like Samuel L. Jackson. I was doing this one-man show sat on a chair, pretending to be myself and Grandpa and telling the rest of the class my joyful anecdote when Mrs. Cuthbert the gorilla and Fatty Jones, a.k.a. Ringo Gringo, were stood in the background with smiley faces. Then I stood up and shouted, "I want the gorilla!" and ran towards the laughing teacher and grabbed Mrs. Cuthbert's arm. And instead of Fatty Jones grabbing her other arm, he took my story literally and grabbed Mrs. Cuthbert's legs. Well, as they say, the show must go on. So I was pulling on Mrs. Cuthbert's arms and Fatty is pulling on her legs. Oh, the look on her face. She was on her back, centre stage, being pulled from limb to lower limb. Then things got a bit out of hand as the class took my story on board and ran on the stage where everyone was screaming and pulling at bits of the defenceless Mrs. Cuthbert. Her face. Let's put it one way. She wasn't laughing and she wasn't corpus mentis. She was at breaking point in body and mind. By the time the bell had gone to end the class, we were all sat on our chairs looking onto an empty stage. Well, not completely empty as Mrs. Cuthbert was near the curtain, gripping onto it, shaking and crying like a broken toy. If she does have a screw loose, she'll need a monkey wrench to tighten it now.
That was a Mark Quinn production, read by Jennifer Quinn.